Hello, racing TV viewers. We're here on the eve of the 2024 Randox Grand National. I'm joined alongside my partner in crime on the Let's Talk Racing podcast, Andrew Blair-White, to give you a runner by runner guide. Yes, all 34 runners with maybe a special guest or two. Andrew, very quickly, you excited about the big race?
You have to be. It's a fantastic race still, despite the modifications over the last few years. And this Aintree Festival, it couldn't have gotten off to a better start yesterday, Josh.
It was a brilliant, brilliant day. Important to note those modifications. This year, 34 runners. Luckily, we're not having to cram 40 runners into half an hour. But 34 runners this year, which means hopefully quality and maybe a higher class general average horse running in the race.
Yeah, very much so. It's becoming a more and more condensed handicap as years go on. There's less and less difference in the weights. And I suppose the fact that the likes of your Panda Boys and Kitty's Lights, who have won plenty of good races in their time, are right at the foot of the weights would tell you that.
Right, let's not waste any time. We've got plenty of horses to talk about. Number one in the Randox Grand National 2024 is Noble Yates, the 2022 winner of the race, trained by Emmett Mullins. That year, he was a novice. He'd ran in the Ultima. Then he went on to win the Grand National under Sam Whaley-Cohen's final ride. It was epic. Can he do it now with Harry Cobden on board 2 years later? He ran down the Gold Cup route last year, ran in the Bowl. Now he's going back into handicap company. This test suits him, but is it going to suit him off a mark of 165?
I'd have thought he's handicapped to the limit here, Josh, to be honest. He's shown some decent form this year back over hurdles in the Cleve. Harry Cobden seems to get a good tune out of him, and at least you know in comparison to some of the others that he does jump pretty well around these fences. He does stay. He may run into the frame for me, but that would be the height of it.
And there's a chance that Emmett Mullins has maybe one or two others who would be slightly more fancied and slightly more well handicapped. And the second one in there is Nassalam, trained by Gary Moore, the mount of Caelan Quinn. He's won a national so far this season, not the Grand National, but the Welsh Grand National was epic that day at Chepstow on the 27th. Do you think that he can go and add this to his portfolio?
I'm not so sure. Again, he's at the top of the weights. Is going to be a very difficult ask. The great thing for him is he'll love this ground. Obviously, went through Chepstow Heavy, which is not easy, and absolutely devoured that field. He'll enjoy the stamina test. He'll enjoy the ground. But yet again, I think he's a bit high in the weights. And I suppose his poorest run of the season was in the Gold Cup last time out. I know that was a step up in class from what he has been doing. But it'd be a little bit of a disappointment that was his last run coming into this.
He was running in the Gold Cup. A race that didn't happen that week at Cheltenham was the cross country, often a very good stepping stone for the Grand National. That's interesting. Maybe those horses peaked. Maybe they needed that run going into Aintree, or maybe they're kept fresh. The first one of those that we're going to talk about is number 3. That is Cocoa Beach for Gordon Elliott. Jordan Gainford takes the ride. Now, I thought he was actually going to Cheltenham with a big chance in the cross country. He was last seen winning at Punchestown, I believe, over the cross-country fences there. And on his previous start was actually over the Grand National fences at Aintree in the Beecher, finishing second to Chambard. Clearly likes Aintree, loves soft ground. That's going to be in his favour, and has experience at the Grand National course. A lot to like.
Yeah, there's plenty of ticks. Always nice to have a horse that goes well over the fences. I suppose he disappointed in the race last year when they maybe made a little bit too much use of him. He got a more considered ride in the Beecher when finishing second. I think they'll ride him again that way. I would worry, Josh, just in an extreme stamina test, whether he will ebb away in that last half mile. I'm not sure he's a certain stayer.
The first classy horse that I think we're going to talk about is Capodanno. He's coming off a 4th in the Ryanair Chase, obviously a massive step up in trip, but with his win in the Cotswolds, stamina wouldn't be a massive doubt, would it?
No, I suppose not. He disappointed in the race last year, but his prep going into the race last year was nowhere near as good as it is this time round. As you say, he was good in the Cotswold. It was a very nice run in the Ryanair, which looked a decent enough piece of form at the time. You've got all of those horses running today in the Melling Chase ahead of him. You know, this is a different kettle of fish to a Grade 1 race. He's not out of it at all. I suppose he took a couple of liberties at his fences last year in the race, and that would be a slight concern to me. Is he quite a good enough jumper to go and win this race? Certainly not out of it in terms of a placed bet, but I'd be a little bit unsure whether his jumping will hold up.
He's also got Keith Donoghue, who was synonymous with Tiger Roll. Obviously, didn't ride Tiger Roll for his 2 national wins, but knows what a Grand National winner feels like. He rode him many times. Now we're going to the really fancy ones. Number 5 is I Am Maximus for Willie Mullins, again owned by JP McManus. This is the mount of Paul Townend. Is that a tip in itself?
It has to be. Look, Paul Townend gets a great tune out of the horse. We saw that in the Irish Grand National. I suppose your caveat with this horse, again, a little bit like Capitano, but maybe even more so, is his jumping. He tends to jump markedly out to his left. He can be a bit careful, a bit clever at times. He has the ability to win. He's more than likely one of the top 2 or 3 handicapped horses in the whole race. So if he was to put it all together, of course he could go and win the race. I still think there's actually a chance that we could go down to the first, make an awful mistake, and your race is run. So he'd be just at the prices he is, I'd be willing to steer away from him for those reasons.
He is second favourite. Could be short, but then again, I've been at Aintree today, and many people are talking about I Am Maximus for the race. Can number 6, Minella Indo, do it? Obviously, the 2021 Gold Cup winner was meant to run in the cross country at Cheltenham. That didn't happen. Can he do it?
I think he potentially can. He's a very classy horse in his day. He's not the horse he once was, but he's always been a tremendous jumper, which will really help him. I was very impressed with how he coped with the cross-country race in December time when lugging around a big weight behind Late Night Pass. I think he would have had a good chance in the cross-country if it had been ran at the March Festival. Again, you're not so sure about an extreme stamina test for him, but I think he'll give you a good run for your money for the majority of the way. I think he'll jump very well and he'll really take to the obstacles.
Number 7 is the big one. That is Corach Rambler, last year's winner. He's favourite for the race. He's favourite to go and defend his crown. And before I talk to you, Andrew, I caught up with Cam Sword to talk all things Corach Rambler. Cam, you must have been thrilled with Jerry Colon winning today.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jared Colom's a class horse, and still he couldn't get the better of Galopin Des Champs. I mean, look, he's in a league of his own, and yeah, Jared Colom winning today kind of proved that 29-day gap it is big enough for horses to recover and get ready for the Grand National Festival. So no, he's ran a blinder. We would have loved to have gone back to the Ultima and tried to get a third, but his weight's obviously too high. We tested him in Grade 1 company, and the Gold Cup showed that he is to that level. And stepping back into handicap company, we know he takes the fences and everything else. So we'd hope he can run a big race on Saturday.
So was that very much a conscious decision at the start of the season that the team made because of his handicap mark, or was the plan to go down the handicap route, or how did that whole plan come about?
Yeah, we always thought he was a handicap horse, and we thought we'll test him in Grade 1 company. The Betfair Chase didn't suit. It was a very small field and everything else, and we ran him in the Gold Cup. If we'd have had a chance earlier on, we would have run him in another Grade 1. If it didn't go well, we would have then reverted back to handicap company. But I think he's off something like 159, due to go up £3. So he's well out of handicap company now, and this was the aim from the start of the season. So £13 higher, I don't think it would have stopped him last year, and we hope it's not going to stop him this year.
His form would suggest that he peaks in the spring. The one thing that's interesting with Saturday's big race is the ground isn't spring-like. It is on the softer side. How do you think Corach's going to deal with that?
Yeah, I think, look, if we could have it our way, the ground would be good to soft, or maybe just soft. It's a 4-mile race. The fences are different. We're hoping that because it's such an abnormal race, these other elements are going to put less of a spotlight on the ground. And every horse is running on the ground. There's a few that are going to like it, a few that aren't going to like it. But I think the biggest benefit we've got is we've tried our horse over the fences, and we know he likes them.
What would it mean to go to Aintree on Saturday and come back with two Grand National trophies?
Yeah, it would be massive. The horse that got me into racing was Tiger Roll. So to think we could do what he's done would really be a dream come true. He's written his name into the history books, and if he wins again on Saturday, he'll just be more remembered than just another national winner.
Magic. Well, very best of luck, and we wish you all the best, mate.
Thank you very much.
There we go. A quite bullish Cam Sword, really excited about going to Aintree, I'd imagine, on Saturday, as any Grand National winning owner would be going back for their title. Obviously, a brilliant run in the Gold Cup. We should get your opinion on this. Where do you sit with Corach Rambler? Is he too high in the weights now?
Well, I'd be very bullish, Josh, if I managed to own a Grand National winner at the age Cam is. So more luck to him and a really good bunch of lads that own that horse. I wonder whether the Gold Cup run may have slightly taken the edge off him, but the way the race is these days, we saw it with Tiger Roll. I don't think Corach Rambler's handicapped out of things by any stretch of the imagination. I think he'll be right there at the finish.
Then we get to our first big shot of the race. That is 8 Janadil, 80 to 1. Is that a fair price?
I think so, Josh. To be honest, you could add another 0 to that and I won't be backing.
Janadil not going to be in one of Andrew's betting slips. Statler, number 9, 40 to 1. He was once a National Hunt Chase winner. Obviously, stamina, you would suggest, is on his side in that case, but he's 40 to 1. Why is that?
Well, I suppose he's been a little bit hit and miss the last couple of years, but he's been running in races that you wouldn't feel would suit. He ran in a John Durkan over 2.5 miles. He looks like a horse that would really relish this type of trip. I think on some of his form, he could really outrun those odds. I suppose the thing that would worry me is he didn't look like he really took to the cross-country fences at Punchestown and behind Cocoa Beach. The Punchestown cross-country course is difficult, an awful lot of drop banks, so therefore you could maybe forgive that. I'd be a little bit concerned on the back of that effort going into a race such as this.
Number 10 is Marla Mission. You had one of those damning days where you think everything's going well, and he came down in the National Hunt Chase when a long way clear. Is there going to be redemption on his third run after that fall?
Well, if any horse deserves a big day in the sun, it is Marla Mission. Obviously, came to grief in the National Hunt Chase when he looked to have the race, certainly in his own hands at the time. He was a very good second in the Coral Gold Cup this year. And That's All Right, Gino. He's a strong, travelling, front-running type. Another type of horse. I think he'll run really well for a really long way. I just wonder whether he'll almost run slightly too enthusiastically. It's his first run since December. He's always been a tad fresh. He is so strong travelling. I think he'll jump really well. I think he'll be suited by the whole thing. I wonder whether that stamina will ebb away in the final half mile. I hope it doesn't, but I'd be concerned.
I know you're going to get very giddy if he is the one turning for home in front. Number 11 is Delta Work. He's actually one of my fancies. I really quite like him, and I think he's a decent price as well. I think he'd have gone off a very short price for the cross-country chase, and I think he would have possibly won it if he had done just that. Obviously, you're taking a punt that he has. I think he'd be much shorter than he is now. So I give Delta Work a chance at number 11. At number 12, we've got Foxy Jacks for Mouse Morris. He's 25 to 1. Do you think that's a good price?
He's a hardy horse. He's a horse you'd love to own. He dances an awful lot of dances, but he does have his quirks. He can jump out to his right quite a lot. And I just wonder, given his rating, given where he is in the handicap, is he quite good enough to win a race like this? I'd be surprised.
Rightly or wrongly, Gordon Elliott trains almost half the field in this year's Grand National. He's got Galvin in at 13. Sam Ewing takes the ride. Again, another one of those horses who's won a National Hunt Chase. Is this stamina test really going to suit him, or has the ground gone against him? We know he likes good ground.
Yeah, I think the ground's the main issue for this horse. Obviously, he does want a sounder surface. They've always said that, and all of his poor runs have come on softer ground, which he is going to have come this race tomorrow. I'd also be a little bit concerned that, unfortunately, he did go down to the first fence last year and did headbutt it. So he does have to go and prove himself over these fences. That can always happen to a horse at the first in the National. I wouldn't hold that completely against him, but there are enough caveats in the way for me not to be backing him.
We've talked about a few of Gordon's runners. We're going to talk about another one here. Farouk Delen, 80 to 1. Donna Myler takes the ride. Again, he's going to be one of Gordon's starts in the race. You have to respect all of them because he knows how to win a Grand National. But is he the one that's going to be topping your list?
No, I doubt it. People will be clinging on to that piece of form when he fell at 2 out in the RSA behind L'Homme Presse when he looked to be going very well. I just wonder, I don't think he's come back the same horse this season. He's been running over hurdles. This is a big step up. It's a step up in trip. It's a step back to the national fences. I think 80 to 1 is probably a fair price for Farouk Delen's chances.
Number 15 is Eldorado Allen, a horse that I liked in the Ultima at the Cheltenham Festival. Didn't run any sort of race there. Can he switch it up and maybe, I don't know, a new lease of life over 4 miles for him, or is 81 a pretty fair reflection of his chances?
Again, I'd say a pretty fair reflection, to be honest. He's a really likable horse. He's been a great servant for connections, but I don't see he's a realistic chance here, to be honest. He was an also ran in the Ultima. His form has been perhaps on the slide the last 18 months. And despite the fact that in general he's becoming nicely handicapped, I think he's got enough to prove.
David Maxwell, number 16. Ain't that a shame? Henry de Bromhead. What a magical story it would be. He keeps going on that it's a professional sport, but amateurs can get involved, and he's almost not exploiting that, but he's really, really, really competing with those stars, the Harry Cobhams, the Sean Bones, the Paul Townends. He's competing with them, and he's competing with them in the biggest stages. This is a prime example of that. Ain't that a shame? I suppose he's not without a chance.
No, and he got it together last time out at Gorn. He won the Thyestes, which is a big handicap, of course. He's always shaped like he could win one of those races as well. He's been touched off in a few valuable handicap chases. He jumped around pretty nicely in the race last year as well. So I hope David Maxwell gets a good spin out of him. I'm sure he will. I would be a little bit concerned, I suppose. He shaped a little bit like he didn't stay last year. And I'm not really sure what he's done this season to prove that has in any way changed. So I'd like to hope that David Maxwell will get a good spin off the horse. But I don't think he might get home.
17 is Vanillier. I think this is my strongest fancy. Second in the race last year to Corach Rambler. It was a very, very good previous run going into this behind Iron Maximus in the Bobby Joe at Fairyhouse. I think he's got a big chance. I think it's a very fair mark as well. And I do think that this would have been the plan all season. Gavin Cromwell's brilliant target trainer. I think he's got a big chance in this. And he is fancied. He's been found in the market. Number 18 is Mr. Incredible. Paul Byrne. You have to respect those colours. They pop up in handicaps all the time. Is it going to be another case of that on Saturday?
I suppose this horse has gone through a bit of a revamp in the last 12 months. Formerly quite a mulish character. He stood at the start a few times. He's been freshened up. I think he's one of these Patrick Mullins project horses where he takes them under the wing properly. But I thought that in the Midlands National last time out, there was no signs of too many quirks. Obviously, that's over that extreme trip of 4 mile 1, another 2 furlongs to contend with here. But he was staying on to the line, and he wasn't beaten when unseating at the Canal Turn last time out. Brian Hayes gets a good tune out of him. For a horse that's around that 18-20 to 1 mark, he wouldn't be one I'd be throwing out.
I think he's been backed as well. It wouldn't surprise me if he went off a good bit shorter than that. 19 is Romwell Fred, another one of Gordon Elliott's horses, owned by Jigginstown, like many of them. 50 to 1. You fancied him for a national hunt chase once upon a time. Again, stamina is his forte. Is the Grand National?
No, I don't think so. I love this horse. As you well know, I've loved this horse for many a year, but he's not the horse he was, and I don't think he has any chance, unfortunately.
20 is Late Night Pass. Tom Ellis has actually taken out a trainer's license just so this horse can run in this race. Loves Aintree, but over a shorter trip. He's proven stamina in a cross country this year at Cheltenham, I think in December. Is he the screaming obvious? He's 25 to 1. He loves Aintree. He absolutely adores the place.
Yeah, very much so. He has a fantastic record in those Fox Hunter races. I suppose this is a big step up on that, but he's a good horse. He's had a good prep for the race. I wouldn't mind. I thought he actually shaped quite well in that novice hurdle at Haydock last time out, even behind now as they are. So I think there's plenty going for him. I suppose, have we seen him go and prove it at this level against this caliber of horse yet? Probably not. Does he do have to prove that? Yes, and that's probably factored into his price. But obviously, I think there'd be no better story in the race if he was to win for the connections. And hopefully Tom Ellis can get a great spin and have his horse to run very well there.
Number 21, Kevin Sexton takes the ride on Gordon Elliott trained Minella Crooner, 80 to 1. He's a horse who I really liked in his early part of his career, but now things have probably gone slightly wayward.
Yeah, he's a very in and out kind of horse. He runs well one day, doesn't run well the next day. Hard to catch him right. I'm not sure this test will really suit.
A fascinating angle that I always like in the Grand National are horses who have excelled over a shorter trip. It tends to, in a weird way, work out well for them. And 22 is adamantly chosen. Sean O'Keefe takes the ride for Willie Mullins. He did prove somewhat of a salmon of doubt on his last start, winning over 3 miles and 2 furlongs, but before had been campaigned of a shorter. Is he that possible classy short distance type that could really excel in a Grand National going that good bit slower?
Potentially so. I would have really, really fancied him if he was running today in the Topham, Josh. I think this sort of test will suit him. He's usually a pretty good jumper, but I'd have loved him, making use of him over 2.5. I really don't think he'll stay. He's a nice horse. I think there's races and big races to be won off this mark with him, but that stamina would be right in the back of my mind. I just don't think he has it.
23 is the Bowen father-son combination. James taking the ride, Peter training, Mac Totty. Again, a horse who likes Aintree. Chance?
I think after the fact that he likes Aintree, I think that's where the positives probably stop for this horse in this race. There's going to be easier assignments in later down the line, I suspect.
Another one of Gordon's is 24, Chemical Energy. Danny Gilligan taking the ride. A mark of 148, I think, is a fair reflection of his ability, but he could be unexposed at extreme trips.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's talented. I think he's quite well handicapped. I'd be worried he hasn't run since Listowel, and I'd also be very worried about the ground. I think he's a good ground horse. If it had come nice spring ground for Aintree this year, I could have seen him almost being a wise guy's horse that would have been backed into maybe slightly shorter prices. I don't think he will be because of the ground. I think he'll struggle as a result.
25 is Limerick Lace. Talking of well handicapped, 147 is definitely lenient for this mare. She won the Mare's Chase at the Cheltenham Festival, but this is a massive step up in trip.
It is indeed. She's the real lurker in this race, though. JP McManus, the owner, yesterday after winning the Fox Hunters, had even alluded to himself that he's had a few quid on this mare. That obviously has to be taken into a bit of consideration. Mark Walsh has picked her as well, and JP has a number of really, really good potential chances in this race. So you have to all put that into consideration. This could be a blot. I'm not convinced it is, but it definitely could be. That Mare's Chase form, I think, is good. Dino Blue had an awful lot of Grade 1 form to go on. She outstayed her. Obviously, that stamina is going to be at the back of people's minds, but it'd be very hard to think this horse will run no race at all.
Those JP McManus Silks have been 100%. They've got a 100% record in the races over the Grand National fences this year so far. Obviously, with It's on the Line winning today in the Fox Hunters. They've got number 26 as well. That is Meeting of the Waters, another fancied runner. This is Danny Mullins' mount for Willie, 8-1. Big chance.
Huge chance, yeah. And Danny Mullins obviously has a good rapport with the horse. Won the Paddy Power Chase on him. Thought it was going to be very hard for him to win the Ultimate from where he was. Couldn't quite reel in Chianti Classico. He was better positioned all the way. He does need to iron out a few jumping mistakes, but he has an enormous chance in this race.
Firing through a few big outsiders. 27 is the Goffer.
Yeah, talented horse. Hasn't tackled an extreme trip for quite a while, though, and I think he probably wants a bit of better ground.
28 is Roy Marge for Patrick Griffin, 50-1.
Yeah, I think if you can get those really kind of 6-7 place, races from some of the bookmakers, which I'm sure there will be on the day, I think he'll give you a good spin. Ran very well in the race last year, equipped himself very well. He's got maybe an each way chance.
On Let's Talk Racing, we're massive fans of Mikey O'Sullivan. He rides number 29, Glenn Gooley for William Mullins. Unfortunately, he's not on one of the fancied ones in the races, but we've seen 66-1 horses go and win the Grand National in the past, and it would fill me with great satisfaction if it was Mikey Big Stones to go and win the 2024 Grand National. Do we think it's possible?
I'm not so sure. Again, another horse that I'd have preferred maybe in the Topham Chase over 2.5. I think he's that type of horse. I think he'll really enjoy the test, and hopefully he gives Mikey a great spin for quite a while. He's usually a pretty sound jumper. He is a tad quirky at times, but he's got some good form to his name this year. I think he'll be handy. I just wonder whether we'll be getting onto the kind of depths of the second circuit, and maybe he'll be beginning to feel the pinch.
Now, number 30 is interesting, Galia Delito. I wonder if you asked trainer Dan Skelton whether he could go and win the Grand National on Saturday, but it meant that he didn't win the trainer's title, or he would win the trainer's title, but Galia Delito didn't win the National. I know those things probably go hand in hand, but I wonder what he would say. She is a fascinating runner. Paul Nicholls doesn't have a runner in the race, so this is a real free hit for Dan Skelton going for the championship. But she's a worthy contender in her own right. A brilliant second in the classic chase. Possibly her last run was a prep run for this. She's 25-1. She's got class on her side. She likes big fields. She needs to be reminded that it's a competitive environment. Harry Skelton takes the ride. Obviously, Dan will have all of his fingers crossed that she can fly the flag for Lodge Hill. But she's a fascinating runner, and she's probably fair at 25-1. Number 31 is Panda Boy, Martin Brazel and JJ Slevin. He's one of the fancied runners again. I know that there was a little bird that told me you quite fancy him.
Oh, I've got a twinkle in the eye about this horse, Josh. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Panda Boy. He's been a little bit of an early horse. He's been placed in a couple of Paddy Powers. He was placed in the Irish National last year. He hasn't got one of these big races under the belt. And I suppose if you were to crab him, you'd say, how's he not managed to finally get his way in there? But he's crept into the bottom of the weights. Martin Brazel, a superb target trainer, as we've always known. But certainly in the last couple of years, we've really been reminded of that with some of his exploits with fast or slow, some of those horses that have gone over to Cheltenham and run massive, massive races. I think he's a real fascinating runner. I have no qualms about stamina. I have no qualms about his jumping. JJ Slevin, he won the Irish Grand National a couple of weeks ago on intense raffles. I hope he has a Grand National double, and I hope Martin Brazel has the Grand National winner.
What a year that would be for JJ Slevin. He wouldn't want the year to ever end, and he'd be hoping that he can run in every other national that's going to be run this year. At 32 is Eclat de Rire, the outsider of the whole field. It's happened before. Is it going to happen on Saturday?
I'm not so sure. He's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde character, really, Eclat de Rire. He's been talented at times. He's looked poor at times. I think he'd need to jump an awful lot better to have any sort of squeak here. Realistically, I don't think he's the one.
Number 33, Chambard for Venetia Williams. Now, he's 66-1. I feel like he's slightly overpriced given that he won the Beecher in December over the national fences.
Yeah, very much so. He does. I think we were having a chat about this a couple of days ago, Josh. He seems to always go off an enormous price, despite the fact that actually his CV holds some very good handicap wins and some excellent performances. He was really good. He loves soft ground, as he showed in the Beecher, which was almost bottomless that day. Likes the course. I think he'll give you a real good spin at a big price. Again, when you're looking at those 5-6 place markets, I think if you got 66-1 about him, 6 places, you'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, I think out of all of the 66-1 shots that we've seen so far, he sticks out for me. And then the final runner, number 34, is Kitty's Light. He got in. That dreaded moment for Christian Williams where his whole season has been campaigned around this one day. And then there was a high chance that Kitties didn't get in, but that's not the case. Jack Tudor takes the ride. He's fancied. Last year, he won 3 of the biggest staying handicap chases that there is in the calendar. He won the Ida. He won the Scottish National. So he's won a national before. He then went and won the Bet365 on the finale day at Sandown. He loves staying trips. He reminds me almost a little bit of Tiger Roll. He's not the biggest horse in the world. If he can get round, he's got a big chance.
Oh, an enormous chance. I suppose he's got his own way of getting from A to B, but he's managed to win an awful lot of huge prizes as a result. There won't be a more emotional winner of the entire race than if Christian can win this race with obviously what's happened to his family over the last year or so. And Kitty's Light has been a revelation, not only on the track, but for them as a family. He seems to be a real family horse. I remember we were incredibly lucky to be at Christian Williams' yard 2 or 3 years ago, and he gave me this horse to look after. He just gave me a lead rope. I didn't know who it was, and then after 2 minutes, he goes, "Oh, that's Kitty's Light." The horse is like a lamb beside me. He's an absolute legend. You'd love him to run a huge race. I wonder whether he was on the phone to Gordon pleading, going, "Gordon, look, you've got so many in this race. Can you just take one out? Just take one. It's all I ask. You get conflated in the Melling chase today. I dare you. I beg you." And he's finally got Kitty's Light in.
I think Christian Williams was probably trying to pay for Conflated's entry fee in the Melling. There we go. 34 runners, runner by runner guide. Very quickly before we go, Andrew, obviously we've talked about 34 horses. We've heard from Cam. I want 2 from you who you'll be siding with in the National.
Well, Panda Boy is my main one. I must confess, I think he's the winner of the race. I really hope he can do it for Martin Brazel and for JJ Slevin. And because of the form of the Paddy Power, I know it's not perhaps massively inspiring, but I'd have to have Meeting of the Waters on side as well. Of all the JP horses, he just sticks out like a sore thumb to me. I think there's more to come from him off his mark. So Panda Boy and Meeting of the Waters for me. I think one's around your 12, 14 to 1 mark, one's 8 to 1. They'll do for me.
It's Vanilla and Delta work for me. Well, thank you very much for that. We do hope you've enjoyed that at home as well, and it's got you excited for the big race on Saturday. Tomorrow, we've got less than 24 hours to wait until the big day. The racing's been brilliant so far this week. We hope you do enjoy, and we hope you have a good couple of days. We'll see you soon.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.